Elena Vasquez's fingers trembled as she gripped the Mafia boss's platinum credit card. Unlimited spending, 48 hours, zero restrictions. 5 other women had already descended on Monarch Boutique like elegant vultures, their arms overflowing with designer bags worth more than her annual salary. But when Elena walked past the luxury storefront and headed straight toward Children's Hospital instead, Anthony Moretti's dark eyes narrowed on the surveillance monitor. He'd anticipated greed. He'd calculated desperation. What she actually purchased would shatter a deadly conspiracy, expose 2 traitors in his inner circle, and force him to choose between his mother's dying wish and everything he'd sworn to protect. Because this wasn't just about money. This was about survival, and only one woman understood the real stakes. Real quick, what time is it where you are right now? Drop your country and the time in the comments below. I love watching this incredible community span the globe. And if you haven't subscribed yet, smash that subscribe button right now. We're building the ultimate Mafia boss universe, and you don't want to miss what happens when 6 women, unlimited money, and a dying mother's wish collide in the most dangerous way possible. The platinum credit card felt heavier than any object Elena Vasquez had ever held. Brushed titanium finish, embossed lettering that caught the evening glow of Monarch Boutique's crystal chandeliers behind her. It seemed to pulse with dangerous possibility in her unsteady grip. She stood among 5 other women outside what Mafia boss Anthony Moretti called his little social experiment. His exact phrasing still echoed through her mind with unsettling clarity. 48 hours. Spend without limits. No ceiling, no conditions, no explanations required. Just show me who you really are when money becomes meaningless. Elena tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear, stealing glances at the 5 other women who clutched identical platinum cards. Victoria Sterling commanded attention in her tailored Valentino dress, her corporate law degree from Yale, and string of billion-dollar mergers preceding her formidable reputation. Isabelle Lauron moved with the practiced elegance of someone who dressed celebrities and royalty alike, her fashion empire built on impeccable taste and ruthless ambition. Naomi Chen radiated quiet power in sleek black, the tech prodigy whose cybersecurity innovations had made her a legend before 30. Katerina Volkov carried herself like the investment banker she was, sharp, calculating, always 3 moves ahead. Dr. Rachel Morrison, in contrast, seemed almost uncomfortable in the spotlight, her medical brilliance overshadowed by the others' fierce confidence. Then there was Elena herself, the single mother who analyzed Anthony's financial portfolios, kept his legitimate holdings profitable, maintained the careful facade of normalcy, while her own world crumbled behind closed doors. "Remember," Anthony said, his voice carrying that particular quality of silk wrapped around steel. He stood centered before Monarch's entrance, the burnt orange suit jacket fitting him like armor, hands casually adjusting his cufflinks as the boutique's golden light spilled around him like a crown. "This experiment has nothing to do with investment returns or business acumen." His dark eyes moved deliberately across each face before settling on Elena with uncomfortable intensity. "Sometimes the choices people make when all constraints vanish tell me more than years of calculated observation ever could." Anthony Moretti defied every expectation people held about men in his position. At 38, he'd inherited the Moretti crime empire in the bloodiest way possible. His brother's murder in a rival family ambush. 6 years later, his empire stretched from legitimate real estate developments to underground operations that law enforcement couldn't touch, wouldn't dare touch. The rumors surrounding him multiplied like shadows cast by flickering flames. That he'd raised his orphan niece with unexpected tenderness. That he donated millions to children's hospitals under shell corporations. That he lived like a monk despite wealth that could purchase senators and silence witnesses. Nobody knew which stories held truth, which were strategic misdirection designed to keep enemies guessing. "Why the 6 of us?" Victoria asked, her confidence unshakable even beneath that predatory stare. "There must be a reason we're standing here instead of the hundreds of other women in your orbit." "Excellent question," he replied, something almost resembling warmth flickering across his severe features. "Let's simply say I've reached a crossroads, both in how I conduct my affairs and in understanding what kind of person I need beside me for what comes next." He paused, darkness crossing his expression like a cloud over the moon. "You 6 represent different answers to the same question. Different paths forward. Different possibilities for legacy." That conversation had occurred 4 hours ago. Now Elena sat behind the wheel of her aging Honda in the hospital parking garage, fluorescent lights casting everything in sickly green. The platinum card balanced on her palm, as though it might suddenly combust. The others had already departed with triumphant energy. Victoria announcing plans for Monarch's VIP suite and personal stylist. Isabel mentioning reservations at Lucille Blue, where a single meal cost more than Elena's monthly mortgage. Naomi heading toward the Tesla dealership with calculated purpose. But Elena stared at the card, then at the hospital entrance where Maya waited for a surgery deposit that would determine whether her daughter lived or died. The weight of that choice pressed against her chest like a physical force. The evening air carried the scent of expensive perfume and autumn leaves as Anthony Moretti's sleek black SUV pulled up to Monarch Boutique's pristine entrance. Elena Vesquez watched from her position slightly apart from the others, her simple navy blazer feeling suddenly inadequate against the sea of designer black dresses surrounding her. The boutique's golden interior cast dramatic shadows across the sidewalk, illuminating 6 women who had no idea why they'd been summoned. Anthony emerged from the vehicle with the casual confidence of a man who owned not just buildings, but the very ground beneath them. The burnt orange suit shouldn't have worked, too bold, too theatrical. But on him it became a statement of absolute authority. He adjusted his cufflinks with deliberate precision, dark eyes sweeping across each woman with clinical assessment. "Ladies," he began, his voice carrying effortlessly despite the city noise, "thank you for accepting my unconventional invitation." He produced 6 platinum cards from his inner jacket pocket, fanning them like a dealer at a high-stakes table. 48 hours. Unlimited spending. 0 restrictions. Consider this an opportunity to show me who you are when constraints disappear. Victoria Sterling stepped forward first, her Valentino dress moving like liquid shadow. "And the purpose of this experiment, Mr. Moretti?" Her Yale-trained legal mind already calculating angles, searching for leverage. "Let's call it an executive assessment," Anthony replied with practiced ambiguity. "I'm expanding certain operations. The right person will receive a position that changes everything." Elena's pulse quickened. A position? In his world, that could mean a corner office or a shallow grave. Her fingers trembled slightly as she accepted the card he extended, the metal cold against her palm. Isabel Lawrence's sophisticated smile never wavered as she took hers, but Elena caught something else. A fleeting glance exchanged between Isabel and Victoria. Brief. Knowing. The same micro-expression she'd seen countless times when Carmen was hiding something dangerous. Her stomach tightened with recognition. "The rules are simple," Anthony continued, seemingly oblivious to the silent communication. "Spend however you choose, by whatever calls to you. At 48 hours, we reconvene for dinner at my estate. Bring evidence of your purchases. Everything else will become clear then." Naomi Chen's analytical mind was already working. Elena could see it in the tech entrepreneur's focused expression. Katerina Volkov examined her card with the cool assessment of someone calculating investment returns. Dr. Morrison looked genuinely bewildered, clutching the platinum rectangle like it might bite. "Questions?" Anthony asked, though his tone suggested he expected none. Victoria's lips curved with calculated charm. "Just one. Are there truly no restrictions whatsoever?" "None." His dark eyes held hers with uncomfortable intensity. "This isn't about money. It's about choices that reveal character when nothing holds you back." As the others immediately began discussing their plans. Monarch's private VIP suite, the Pinnacle Hotel's penthouse, exclusive galleries. Elena stood motionless, her mind racing toward Children's Hospital, where Maya's surgery deposit waited like a ticking clock. Around her, 5 women saw opportunity for indulgence. Elena saw only her daughter's face and the impossible choice now burning in her hand. The moment Anthony's SUV disappeared around the corner, the 5 women moved with predatory efficiency. Victoria swept through Monarch's entrance like she owned it, her heels clicking against marble as a personal stylist materialized at her elbow. Within 20 minutes, a burnt orange Hermes Birkin, chosen deliberately, Elena suspected, to mirror Anthony's suit, rested in tissue paper alongside a vintage Cartier bracelet dripping with diamonds that caught the chandelier light like captured stars. Isabel made 3 phone calls from the sidewalk, her French accent purring through each conversation. The Pinnacle Hotel's presidential suite. A private runway show featuring next season's unreleased collection. A reservation at Lucille Blue that required 6 months advance booking. secured with a single mention of the Moretti name. Naomi headed toward the technology district with singular focus, emerging hours later with prototype devices not yet available to the public and confirmed arrangements to test drive a limited edition Bugatti. Katerina disappeared into Rothschild Gallery, where she acquired a Modigliani sketch and cases of Chateau Margaux from a legendary vintage. Even Dr. Morrison, initially hesitant, surrendered to the seduction of unlimited resources, booking the city's most exclusive spa, then allowing Monarch's stylist to rebuild her wardrobe with quiet, expensive elegance. Elena walked past them all, her reflection ghosting across Monarch's gleaming windows like a specter at a feast she wasn't meant to attend. The platinum card burned in her purse, but her feet carried her toward the bus stop, then the transfer, then the familiar path to Children's Hospital where fluorescent lights replaced crystal chandeliers and antiseptic replaced perfume. The billing office smelled like desperation and industrial cleaner. Elena placed the card on the counter with trembling fingers, the words barely escaping her constricted throat. I need to pay the deposit for Maya Vasquez's valve replacement surgery, scheduled for next Tuesday. The clerk's eyebrows lifted at the platinum card's weight, its embossed lettering catching the harsh overhead lights. She swiped it once, twice, then looked up with something approaching reverence. The full amount, 50,000. Elena nodded, her vision blurring. Accepting this, accepting him, felt like admitting defeat, like confessing that 9 years of fierce independence, of double shifts and skipped meals, of pride worn like armor, hadn't been enough. Her signature on the receipt wavered, each letter a small surrender. Your daughter's very lucky, the clerk said gently, sliding papers across the counter. Dr. Chun is the best pediatric cardiac surgeon in 3 states. Lucky. The word tasted bitter. Lucky would have been insurance that actually covered life-saving procedures. Lucky would have been not needing a mafia boss's charity to keep her child alive. Elena folded the receipt with mechanical precision, tucking it into her wallet beside Maya's school photo. Her daughter's gap-toothed smile, a reminder of exactly what she was fighting for. Outside the hospital windows, Philadelphia glittered with wealth and possibility. Somewhere out there, 5 women were drowning in luxury, collecting experiences and acquisitions like trophies. Elena had just bought 48 more hours of her daughter's heartbeat, and the cost felt immeasurably higher than any price tag. The ATM transaction limit forced Elena to make 3 separate withdrawals, each beep feeling like a countdown to something irreversible. 18,000 in cash, rubber-banded into thick stacks that weighed down her purse like evidence of a crime. South Philadelphia's streets narrowed as she drove deeper into territory where streetlights flickered unreliably and businesses operated behind barred windows. Dante Russo's office occupied the back of a check-cashing operation, accessible through a door that didn't lock properly. He looked up from his scarred desk when she entered, cigarette smoke curling around his practiced smile. Well, little Elena Vasquez. Didn't expect you so soon. She dropped the cash on the desk between them, keeping her voice steady. 18,000. Carmen's debt paid in full. His hands moved slowly, deliberately counting each bill while his eyes traveled over her with uncomfortable appreciation. Your sister's got expensive taste and bad luck. You know she was in here last week. Wanted to double down, said she had a system. He licked his thumb, continuing his count. I told her family's always good for credit. She's done. This clears everything. Elena's nails bit into her palms. Sure. Dante stacked the bills with meticulous care, then leaned back in his chair. Funny thing though, word on the street is you're running with Anthony Moretti now. Moving up in the world. His smile sharpened. Tell your boss Dante always collects one way or another. We're practically business associates, him and me. The implied threat hung in the stale air like the cigarette smoke. Elena turned without responding, her spine rigid until she reached her car where her hands finally shook against the steering wheel. St. Catherine's Community Center looked exactly as she remembered. The same chipped paint, the same handwritten sign advertising free meals on Thursdays. Elena had stood in line here countless times when Maya was an infant, pride warring with hunger until hunger won. She found Father Miguel in the pantry, stacking donated cans with arthritic fingers. I'd like to make an anonymous donation, she said quietly. Enough to keep the pantry stocked for 6 months. His weathered face creased with surprise as she wrote the check, then gentle understanding. God sees all gifts, whether names are attached or not. Elena left before he could ask questions, the receipt folded beside Maya's surgery papers. 2 pieces of paper that represented everything money could and couldn't buy. Miles away, in Anthony's private office, security monitors displayed a mosaic of surveillance feeds. Marcus, his head of security, cycled through footage of 6 women making their divergent choices. Victoria at Monarch, draped in luxury. Isabel commanding hotel staff like subjects. Naomi test-driving machinery. Katerina in hushed gallery negotiations. Dr. Morrison surrendering to pampering. Then Elena's feed. Hospital billing office, loan shark's office, community center. Anthony leaned forward, his expression unreadable as he watched her pay for things that couldn't be worn or displayed or photographed for social proof. No designer bags. No status symbols. Just survival and quiet generosity. Choices made when she thought no one was watching. Marcus cleared his throat. Sir, the others' purchases align with predicted behavior patterns. But Vasquez. I see it, Anthony interrupted, his voice carrying something that might have been surprise, or recognition, or something more dangerous. Something in his carefully guarded chest shifted, like a lock tumbling open after years of calculated resistance. Anthony's estate made Monarch Boutique look modest by comparison. The dining room stretched beneath a chandelier that could have illuminated a cathedral, its crystal prisms scattering light across imported Carrara marble and Renaissance paintings that belonged in museums. Elena counted 12 place settings of gold-rimmed china before losing track, her simple black dress feeling increasingly inadequate as she took her assigned seat. Victoria presented first, naturally. The Birkin bag emerged from its orange box like a religious artifact, followed by the Cartier bracelet that caught the chandelier light with calculated brilliance. Investment pieces, she explained smoothly. Hermès bags appreciate 17% annually. Vintage Cartier outperforms most stock portfolios. Her smile was professional perfection. I thought the test was about demonstrating strategic thinking. Isabel's presentation centered on experience rather than objects. Leather portfolios containing confirmation numbers, exclusive access passes, photographs of her private runway show. Luxury isn't about ownership, she said with practiced elegance. It's about accessing worlds others can't enter. Naomi's tech acquisitions drew Anthony's genuine interest, her explanation of prototype applications revealing the sharp mind that had built her empire. Katerina discussed her art investment with the cool precision of someone calculating future returns. Even Dr. Morrison presented her spa receipts and clothing purchases with quiet dignity, framing them as professional development. Then Elena's turn arrived like a sentencing hearing. She placed 3 pieces of paper on the table. Hospital receipt. Cancelled debt confirmation. Community center donation record. No elaborate presentation, no strategic framing. Just evidence of choices made in desperation and memory. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Crystal clinked against china somewhere down the table. How practical, Victoria finally said, her tone dripping with condescension. Though I'm not sure paying bills demonstrates the imagination and refinement this opportunity requires. Anthony's hand lifted slightly, silencing her without words. His dark eyes remained fixed on Elena with an intensity that made breathing difficult. Ladies, thank you for your presentations. Marcus will see you out. Miss Vasquez, please stay. The scrape of chairs, the rustle of designer fabric, the pointed glances. Elena endured them all until the massive doors closed with a definitive thud, leaving her alone with a man whose reputation included bodies that disappeared without trace. Anthony moved to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of something amber that probably cost more than her car. He handed her one, then spoke words that shattered her understanding of everything. My mother is dying. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors give her 6 weeks, maybe 8. His voice carried no emotion, but his fingers tightened around the glass. Her final wish is seeing me married to someone who understands real value. Not a business associate. Not a strategic alliance. A partner who sees beyond balance sheets and power structures. Elena's world tilted violently. You're not hiring an executive. No. He met her eyes with devastating directness. I'm considering a wife. And you, Miss Vasquez, just showed me something the others couldn't fake. What a person does when they think no one's watching. When survival and generosity matter more than status. He paused, something almost vulnerable crossing his features. My mother would have made the same choices you did. The crystal glass trembled in Elena's hand, amber liquid threatening to spill. Elena's phone shattered the tense silence of Anthony's conference room, her sister's name flashing across the screen with the insistence of catastrophe. She answered with shaking hands, already knowing before the words came. Maya collapsed at school. They're taking her to Children's Hospital now. Elena, she couldn't breathe, Carmen's voice fractured into panic. The phone slipped from Elena's grip, clattering against imported mahogany. Her vision tunneled, the corporate headquarters with its floor-to-ceiling windows and leather furniture dissolving into white noise. Somewhere distant, she heard her own voice, thin and desperate. Emergency surgery. Tonight. They said next week. It was supposed to be next week. Anthony's hand closed around her elbow, steady and immediate. What hospital? Children's. But the deposit only covered scheduled surgery. Emergency protocol needs another 50,000. I can't. The words tangled with her breath, her carefully constructed composure disintegrating like ash. We're leaving now. Anthony's command cut through her spiral. He guided her toward the elevator with a security team materializing around them like shadows, his phone already pressed to his ear. Marcus, clear the route to Children's Hospital. Contact Dr. Adrian Chin. Tell him I need him in Philadelphia within 2 hours. Private jet, whatever it costs. The armored Range Rover moved through traffic with terrifying efficiency, lights and sirens clearing their path. Elena's hands twisted in her lap, 9 years of fierce independence crumbling under the weight of absolute helplessness. I should have noticed. I should have seen the signs. I should have. Stop. Anthony's voice held unexpected gentleness beneath its authority. Heart conditions don't announce themselves. You did everything possible. The hospital's bureaucratic machinery would have crushed anyone else, but Anthony Moretti didn't negotiate. He demolished obstacles. Financial holds evaporated with single phone calls. Consent forms materialized pre-approved. Within 30 minutes, Dr. Chin arrived from Newark, still pulling on his scrubs, his reputation preceding him like a protective shield. 6 hours minimum, the surgical team explained, their words clinical and distant. The valve replacement is complicated in children this young. 6 hours became an eternity measured in fluorescent flicker and antiseptic smell. Elena sat rigid in the waiting room's plastic chair, her entire existence reduced to watching double doors that refused to open. Around them, other families waited for their own verdicts, but Anthony's presence created an invisible perimeter that no one dared cross. At hour 4, Elena's control finally shattered. The tears came without permission, racking her body with violence she'd suppressed for 9 years of single parenthood, of choosing between electricity and groceries, of smiling through Maya's questions about why other kids had daddies and she didn't. Anthony moved without hesitation, pulling her against his chest as she fractured completely. His expensive suit absorbed her tears, his arms solid and unwavering where everything else felt like drowning. No platitudes, no false promises. Just presence, 2 people accustomed to bearing unbearable weight alone, finally sharing the burden in harsh fluorescent lighting that stripped away every pretense. She's all I have, Elena whispered against his shoulder. If she doesn't make it, she will. Anthony's certainty felt like an anchor in churning water. Dr. Chin doesn't lose patience. Maya's recovery crept forward in increments measured by beeping monitors and nurse rotations. By the 3rd day, she graduated from ICU to pediatric recovery, her small body swallowed by hospital blankets, breathing steady through supplemental oxygen. Elena hadn't left the hospital since the surgery, surviving on vending machine coffee and the quiet terror that came with almost losing everything. Anthony appeared in the doorway of the family lounge with unexpected hesitation, a small figure tucked against his side. The child couldn't have been more than 7, dark curls framing a face that held the kind of solemnity no child should carry. She wore a purple dress and clutched a worn stuffed rabbit with single-minded intensity. Elena, this is Sophia, my niece. Anthony's voice carried a vulnerability she'd never heard before. Sophia, this is Miss Elena. She's been helping take care of someone very special, just like I helped take care of you. The little girl's enormous dark eyes fixed on Elena with an intensity that felt almost searching. Hope and terror battled across her small features in equal measure. Elena recognized that expression. She'd seen it in her own mirror during the desperate years. She lowered herself to Sophia's eye level, movements slow and deliberate. Hi, Sophia. I have some crayons and coloring books if you'd like to help me pass the time. Hospital waiting gets pretty boring. She held out the box of crayons the nurses had provided for Maya, keeping her hands steady and open. Sophia took one hesitant step forward, then another. Her small hand reached for the crayons, fingers trembling slightly. Then, in a voice barely louder than breath, she spoke words that fractured the silence she'd maintained for 24 months. "Are you going to be my new mama?" The question hung in the sterile air like a prayer and an accusation simultaneously. Elena's throat constricted, her eyes finding Anthony's across the space. His controlled expression cracked, something raw and desperate bleeding through before he could suppress it. Before either adult could respond, Marcus materialized in the doorway, his expression grim. "Sir, we need to talk. Now." Anthony's jaw tightened. It can't wait. It's about the women. And the sister." Marcus's meaningful glance towards Sophia conveyed urgency that transcended protocols. Anthony crouched beside his niece, voice gentle. "Sophia, will you stay with Miss Elena while I talk to Marcus? I'll be right outside that door. You can see me through the window." In his private office via secure video call, Marcus displayed surveillance footage that transformed the test into something far more sinister. Victoria at Monarch, but the timestamps showed her lingering near service entrances where known Marchetti soldiers conducted transactions. Isabel's hotel suite, tracked through electronic signatures, hosting encrypted communications that pinged servers in enemy territory. "They're not just contestants," Marcus said flatly. "They're operatives. Deep cover, probably years in development." The final footage made Elena's blood freeze when Anthony showed her minutes later. Carmen, entering Dante Russo's office 48 hours after the debt was paid, leaving with an envelope. Meeting him again near Anthony's corporate headquarters, their body language suggesting ongoing arrangement rather than coincidental encounter. "The loan shark works for the Marchettis," Anthony explained, his voice carrying lethal calm. "Your sister's being coerced, used as leverage to gather intelligence." Dante's exact words to you. "Tell your boss we're practically business associates. That wasn't random threat. It was a message." Elena's world tilted again, but this time toward something darker. The test had never been just about character. It was a battlefield dressed in platinum cards and designer boutiques, and somehow she'd walked into the crossfire with her daughter and sister as collateral damage. Monarch's private event venue occupied the entire third floor, accessible only by private elevator that required biometric clearance. Crystal and gold transformed the space into something between art gallery and throne room, where models glided between guests showcasing pieces that wouldn't reach public sale for months. Elena felt profoundly out of place in her borrowed dress, surrounded by Philadelphia's elite who'd been carefully curated for whatever Anthony was about to announce. Only 3 women from the original test remained. Victoria commanded her corner of the room in midnight Valentino, confidence unshaken despite the narrowed field. Isabel held court near the bar, her fashion empire connections evident in how designers sought her approval. Elena stood slightly apart, her thoughts divided between Maya recovering at home with Carmen and Sophia's whispered question that still echoed through her sleepless nights. Anthony materialized at the room's center, commanding attention without effort. "Thank you all for celebrating this important moment. After careful consideration, I've made my choice." His dark eyes found Elena across the crowd. Elena Vasquez will serve as director of the Moretti Family Foundation, channeling $80 million toward healthcare access, community support, and family services. He paused, letting the announcement settle. "She'll also be my wife." The room erupted in polite applause, masking genuine shock. Elena's vision swam, the casual way he'd announced their engagement feeling both surreal and terrifyingly public. Victoria's smile never wavered, but something predatory flickered beneath it. "A toast," Victoria's voice cut through the murmuring crowd. "To honor this momentous decision. To Anthony and Elena, may they build something extraordinary together." Staff materialized with champagne flutes on silver trays, crystal catching the sophisticated lighting like liquid diamonds. A smaller flute of sparkling cider appeared for Sophia, who'd been tucked beside Anthony throughout the evening. The crowd raised their glasses in synchronized elegance. Then Elena saw it, that same subtle glance exchanged between Victoria and Isabel. Brief, knowing, satisfied. The exact micro-expression she'd cataloged that first evening outside Monarch. The same tell she'd learned to recognize in Carmen's desperate lies, in Dante's threatening promises. their body language synchronized perfectly, practiced and lethal. Everything crystallized with terrifying clarity. Elena's body moved before conscious thought completed, maternal instinct overriding self-preservation. She lunged forward, knocking the champagne from Anthony's hand and Sophia's cider in one fluid motion. Crystal shattered against imported marble, amber liquid spreading like accusation. Marcus's voice crackled urgent through Anthony's earpiece, loud enough for Elena to hear. The champagne's poisoned. Marchetti assassination attempt in progress. Repeat, the champagne is. Chaos detonated like a grenade in elegant wrapping. Security flooded the venue from concealed positions, weapons drawn with practiced efficiency. Guests screamed, scattering toward exits that sealed automatically. Victoria and Isabel bolted toward the boutique's rear service entrance, their practiced composure shattering into raw survival instinct. They made it 3 steps before Marcus's team cornered them among Monarch's designer displays, Hermès bags and Cartier jewelry providing absurdly opulent backdrop to their capture. Victoria's perfect facade crumbled, Italian curses spilling from her mouth in an accent she'd hidden beneath Yale polish. Isabel fought with unexpected violence before being subdued against a mannequin wearing next season's collection. Anthony pulled Sophia and Elena behind him, his body becoming a shield as the conspiracy unraveled in spectacular, deadly fashion around them. The interrogation room's fluorescent lighting stripped Victoria and Isabel of every sophisticated veneer they'd cultivated. Without the Valentino dresses and practiced charm, they looked younger, harder. Soldiers caught in enemy territory with nothing left to lose. 5 years, Victoria said flatly, her Yale accent dissolved into working-class Italian. 5 years building cover in his legitimate holdings, waiting for the opportunity. The test was perfect. Marry him or kill him, either way the Moretti empire falls. Isabel's confession came with cold precision. Carmen was leverage. Dante cultivated her gambling addiction deliberately, used her love for Elena to extract intelligence. The sister provided access codes, security patterns, personal vulnerabilities. Everything we needed. Marcus played the surveillance footage. Carmen entering offices after hours, photographing documents, meeting Dante with thick envelopes. Each frame another betrayal, another crack in the foundation Elena had tried to protect. The other 3 women, Naomi, Katerina, Dr. Morrison, were cleared after extensive vetting, their involvement purely coincidental. Anthony's compensation came with ironclad non-disclosure agreements, an unspoken understanding that forgetting was healthier than remembering. Elena found Carmen in Maya's hospital room, where her sister sat watching the 9-year-old sleep. The confrontation she'd rehearsed dissolved into something rawer, more painful than anger. They showed me the footage, Elena said quietly. All of it. Carmen's face crumbled. He said he'd hurt you. Hurt Maya. The debt wasn't just money. It was a leash. I tried to protect you by giving them what they wanted. By betraying the one person trying to help us? By making me complicit in something that could have killed people. Elena's voice cracked despite her control. I love you. I've always loved you. But love doesn't mean enabling destruction. The Foundation's addiction treatment program would accept Carmen immediately. Residential care, therapy, accountability measures. But Elena's conditions were non-negotiable. Complete honesty, 0 contact with gambling operations, and accepting that some consequences couldn't be erased by good intentions. I'm offering support, not rescue, Elena said through tears. You have to want to change more than I want you to change. Anthony found his mother in hospice twilight, her once formidable presence reduced to fragile breath and translucent skin. Rosa Moretti's eyes still held fierce intelligence despite the morphine haze. He told her everything, about Elena's hospital receipts and food pantry donations, about Sophia speaking for the first time in 2 years, about choosing vulnerability over strategy, love over control, about the terror of admitting he needed someone more than he feared losing them. Rosa's hand tightened around his with surprising strength. Your father thought power came from fear, from controlling every variable. Her voice rasped like wine through autumn leaves. But real power, the kind that builds legacies instead of empires, comes from loving someone more than you fear losing them. She passed peacefully 3 hours later, her final breath a whisper of satisfaction. Anthony sat holding her cooling hand as dawn broke over Philadelphia, feeling simultaneously emptied and somehow more complete than he'd been in 6 years of calculated survival. In the hallway outside, Elena waited with Sophia sleeping against her shoulder, the little girl's worn rabbit tucked between them. No words necessary, just presence. 3 people who'd been broken by violence and loss, beginning the slow work of becoming whole. 3 months transformed the landscape of Elena's life in ways no platinum card could have purchased. The Moretti Family Foundation operated from offices that had once housed abandoned dreams, now channeling $80 million toward families drowning in medical debt, communities without adequate food access, children who needed second chances. Elena's understanding of struggle, authentic and unvarnished, shaped every decision with precision that no business degree could replicate. Maya's scar had faded to a thin pink line, her laughter now unrestricted by failing valves and labored breathing. She and Sophia had become inseparable despite the 2-year gap, their bond forged in shared understanding of what it meant to almost lose everything. Anthony's estate, once silent as a mausoleum, now echoed with games of hide-and-seek and negotiated bedtimes. Carmen was 6 weeks into residential treatment, her video calls showing incremental progress. Clarity returning to her eyes, accountability replacing justification. The road stretched long ahead, but she was finally walking it instead of running away. The wedding took place on a crisp autumn morning at St. Catherine's Community Center, where faded linoleum replaced imported marble and folding chairs stood in for cathedral pews. Father Miguel had decorated with donated flowers, and whatever elegance could be coaxed from a building that prioritized function over beauty. The same room where Elena had once stood in line for food assistance now held witnesses to her transformation. Anthony waited at the makeshift altar in simple charcoal rather than commanding burnt orange, his usual armor replaced by something softer, more vulnerable. When Elena appeared in the doorway wearing a dress that cost less than Victoria's handbag, but fit her like it had been designed for precisely this moment, his carefully controlled expression cracked into something approaching wonder. Sophia and Maya preceded her down the aisle, giggling as they scattered rose petals with enthusiastic abandon, the worn stuffed rabbit tucked under Sophia's arm like an honored guest. The intimate gathering included Dr. Chun and his surgical team, community center volunteers whose quiet generosity had once kept Elena and infant Maya alive, and Marcus standing as best man with surprising moisture in his eyes. Elena's hands trembled as Anthony slid the ring onto her finger, the same tremor she'd had holding his platinum card that first evening. But this time the weight meant something entirely different. "You taught me that the richest man isn't the one with the most money," Anthony whispered, his voice carrying only to her. "It's the one who has the most to lose, and finds the courage to risk it anyway." Elena responded through tears that felt like release rather than grief. "And you taught me that accepting love isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing I've ever done." The photograph taken that afternoon captured 6 lives that had intersected outside Monarch Boutique's glittering facade. 2 adults who'd learned that true wealth wasn't measured in designer bags or luxury experiences. 2 children who'd found the siblings they'd been missing. And 2 souls who'd discovered that sometimes the most valuable thing you can purchase with unlimited resources is the courage to need someone else. The Platinum Card's legacy lived not in bank statements, but in the family that had formed from broken pieces, proving that what you're willing to sacrifice for those who matter most is the only currency that truly appreciates over time.